أهلا بكم. أتحدث اليوم إلى مدعي عام المحكمة الجنائية الدولية كريم خان. سنخصص الجزء الأكبر من برنامجنا للتحقيقات حول ارتكاب جرائم حرب وجرائم ضد الإنسانية في إقليم دارفور وأخرى جديدة، بشأن ما يشير إليه تقريره الأخير لمجلس الأمن على أنه الأحداث التي وقعت في إطار الأعمال القتالية الراهنة في السودان. كذلك سنسأله عن سير التحقيقات في ليبيا وعن صدمته مما عاينه مؤخراً في الكونغو الديمقراطية، ولكن أيضاً حول مذكرة الاعتقال التي أصدرتها محكمته في حق الرئيس الروسي فلاديمير بوتين. أحييكم أينما كنتم من العربية. أنا منتهى الرمحي وهذا البعد الآخر. أحييكم من جديد مشاهدينا، ونظراً لأهمية مواضيع اليوم وتعددها فلن نخصص فقرة لعرضها جميعاً ضمن الاستهلال الذي اعتدنا أن نبدأ به برنامجنا. سنتوجه مباشرة بالأسئلة إلى المدعي العام كريم خان. أهلاً بك معنا سيد خان مجدداً في البعد الآخر وعلى شاشة العربية.
It's always an honor to be interviewed by العربية.
نجري معك هذا الحوار مباشرة بعد أن أطلعت مجلس الأمن على تقدم أعمال محكمتكم بشأن دارفور. لو تلخص لنا النقاط الرئيسية لتقريركم.
The main point is that I announced that I was investigating current crimes arising out of the current re-emergence of conflict. I had previously stated in my last report to the Council 6 months ago that this period was key to show whether or not Sudan was serious, whether or not Sudan was sincere in its promises to cooperate so that there could be justice for the people of Sudan in general and the Darfuri people in particular. Unfortunately, I announced that the cooperation has become zero. There's been really no cooperation at all this year, even before the conflict re-emerged on the 15th of April. And then since the 15th of April, we have seen and read many reports of a variety of crimes. Just today, only this morning, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, released a report detailing allegations regarding the killing of scores of Masalit members of the Sudanese community. So I announced that because these further crimes were taking place, I was also going to investigate those crimes and to see whether or not they constitute genocide, war crimes or crimes against humanity.
بحسب تقريركم أيضا انتهيتم من مرحلة الادعاء في قضية علي محمد علي عبد الرحمن الملقب بعلي كشيب. لو لخصت لنا أيضا ما تم إنجازه حتى الآن. هناك السؤال الذي يتعلق بموعد نهايتها. هذه قضية أصلا قديمة جدا.
Well, I announced it's an excellent point. I think with excellent trial judges of the International Criminal Court, with excellent work by the men and women of my office, and also the work of the defense and legal representatives of the victims, I closed the prosecution case some months ago. 81 witnesses were heard. The trial took less than a year for the prosecution to close its case. And I think this is really meaningful. Victims already have testified before the court, and they've actually said that this means something to them. Many people have been, they talk about being raped, they talk about being invisible, they talk about yearning for justice for the past. And I think this puts into vivid relief the fact that we need to ensure justice not only for the events of 2003 and 2004, but throughout this period until today and what's happening today. Because the truth of the matter is that because there was no real cooperation by Sudan, because there wasn't justice for the allegations of genocide, war crimes or crimes against humanity that compelled the Security Council to refer the Sudan matter to my office in 2005, it has, in my view, led to the conflict that we see today. There hasn't been a willingness to effectively deal with allegations of impunity. There hasn't been a willingness to speak up for the victim, the weakest person, the weakest man, woman or child. And I think that refusal to deal with accountability sowed the seeds for these, for the despair and the cruelty that we see today in Sudan, at least the cruelty that's being alleged and that we hear from so many refugees that have fled out of Sudan for safety and actually in fear for their lives.
لماذا هذه القضية تحديداً؟ وأعني قضية كوشيب، لماذا هي مهمة؟ لماذا لها رمزية وخاصة جداً بالنسبة إليك؟
Well, I think it's important as well as symbolic. It's important because there's a principle that your viewers may have heard of, which is the Nuremberg principle, which states that there's no statute of limitations for war crimes. Now, this trial was the first case arising out of the first situation referred to my office by the Security Council in 2005. Now, I've been prosecutor since June 2021, but it is important that that first time we've started a trial, we managed to call witnesses in difficult circumstances. The courage of victims and witnesses is amazing. I mean, they're the heroes of the story, that they have the courage and the belief that despite having lost loved ones, despite being displaced, despite having their identity, their community targeted, they believe that this international architecture that's being created, whether it's the United Nations or the ICC, can give them some justice or at least ensure accountability. And so it is important that that promise of justice has some tangible results for these victims, because otherwise, if they feel invisible, if they feel that they're too poor, they're too weak, they're too unimportant for their lives to matter, we will no doubt continue the cycle of violence that we've seen in other parts of the world, and actually the cycle of violence we've seen in Sudan. But it's also important that one trial doesn't mean justice for all of the people of Sudan. It's very important there is one trial. It's very important it comes to a conclusion. We will keep helping the defense and the victims as well to present their cases, but I'm confident in the case that the prosecution has presented. The judges of the ICC have dismissed applications to find that there is no case to answer, but the judges will decide whether or not we have proved the case beyond reasonable doubt. But we need to go deeper, because you look at the hundreds of thousands of people that have been displaced, the millions that have been affected by conflict, children whose futures have been decimated in 2004 and 2005. We need to show that justice is more than words from a studio like this. It's more than something we speak about in the Security Council. It is felt by people in refugee camps, whether they're in Chad, whether they're in Sudan, or whether they're anywhere in the world, that we will find a way to ensure that there's justice. So we need to go deeper. And I think the failure of Sudan to properly cooperate, the failure also of the international community to ensure that a Chapter 7 referral, which means the Security Council found that the situation in Darfur represented a threat to international peace and security, it's resulted in security today. And so are we going to be satisfied? Are your viewers going to be satisfied with a whole new generation of children who are traumatized by war, who are traumatized by conflict, when they're completely innocent? And unless we ensure justice and realize that without justice there's no chance of reconciliation, God forbid we're going to repeat this cycle of violence that really we should render extinct. But we will do so by working together and delivering on justice, because the people of Darfur deserve no less.
قضية كوشيب ليست وحدها في هذه المحاكمات، هناك أيضا قضية أحمد هارون كما نعلم، وأيضا الرئيس السابق عمر البشير. نعلم أنه هو ومعتقلين آخرين ما عادوا رهن الاحتجاز الآن بسبب الحرب الدائرة في السودان. شو المعلومات التي لديكم عنه؟ هل هناك أي خطوات اتخذتموها أو تنوون اتخاذها لإحضاره أو لتحديد مكانه؟
Well, I think the case, we continued investigations. I think it's a solid case, but for both him and former President Omar al-Bashir, they're not in our hands. They're in Sudan. And Sudan has an international law obligation to cooperate. It's not my request. The Security Council directed under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter that Sudan shall cooperate with the prosecutor and with the International Criminal Court. And they haven't done so. Today they've said that these individuals are in hospitals. They've said that publicly. Well, I don't know. It hasn't been verified. But they should be before a court. They haven't been brought before a court in Sudan all these years. And therefore I have found that Sudan is unwilling or unable to investigate, and they have to find a court somewhere. And we are here as a court of last resort, but I'm willing to partner with the Arab League or with the Organization of Islamic Conference or with the African Union or with any state or region to make sure we can vindicate the rights of survivors. As I said, we're here as a court of last resort because so far we have to ensure that there is justice for the most innocent and most vulnerable members of humanity.
سيد خان، مفهوم العدالة وحتى يتحقق ينبغي أن يرتبط بالملأ، أي بأن ناس لهم حضور يشاهدون هذه القضية ويحضرون المحاكمة وكذلك يحضرون تنفيذ العقاب. هل الضحايا وتجمعات السكان يتابعون المحاكمة؟ هل كانت لكم خطة لذلك؟
Yes, we do. In fact, alhamdulillah, I've been to Sudan. I went to Khartoum twice. I went to Darfur. I went to the refugee camps, and I went to Kalma camp, in which there's 30,000 people that have been living there since 2004, 2005. And I get very humbled, actually, because, and I told this to the council last year, they believe in justice. They welcomed me with such warmth. Welcome, ICC, welcome, Mr. Khan. But I told the council that gratitude, that kindness that they showed me, I don't deserve. My office, the court, don't deserve, and the Security Council don't deserve, because they shouldn't be living in these camps since 2005, and the government of Sudan don't deserve it, because we have to deliver on the rights of the weakest. It defines us. To realize we are accountable to God and we're accountable to the law, we need to do better for the most vulnerable. So the court has tried many different ways of engagement. I have brought members of the Darfuri community to the court, to The Hague. We've engaged them in training on crimes like gender persecution or crimes against children. When the trial opened, the registry of the court made a lot of effort to, with actually the assistance of the United Nations and others, to have big television screens so that members of the Darfuri community could follow the proceedings in The Hague. I want the court to be closer to the victims. I would like very much to have a constant field presence in Khartoum. We were about to do so before, in October 2021, there was a coup. The transitional government was jettisoned, of former Prime Minister Hamdok. He was removed, and then the military alliance between General Burhan and General Hemeti came into being, and cooperation, unfortunately, has been declining since then. So we have to keep on engaging with victims and survivors. I've announced a portal for victims, whether they're anywhere in the world, in Sudan, in the Emirates, in the United Kingdom, in the diaspora around the world, to give us information. I have said repeatedly that people should provide evidence and speak the truth. And I told the council, I think it's important, particularly on this channel, with internationally I know, but also with a large viewership that is Muslim. I said this is not only by virtue, this issue of speaking the truth, it's not only because of the Security Council has required cooperation with my office, it's not only because of the law of the Rome Statute or the prohibition of genocide or war crimes or crimes against humanity. I referred to Surah Al-Nisa, and in a Muslim country like Sudan, in a largely Muslim country like Sudan, in which leaders of the warring parties say that they are Muslim, I prayed in aid that surah that says that speak the truth, fight for justice, speak the truth, even if it is against your own selves, even if it is against your family, your parents, speak the truth. So I was encouraging people, if they have the truth, and we are true to our word as Muslims or as citizens of the world, or we believe in a world without genocide or crimes against humanity, I said, who will grasp my hand and join together towards justice and against criminality? And I think this is an individual obligation, because none of us, neither me nor your viewers, nor the leaders of warring parties in Sudan, will live here forever. And justice, of course, will be done by God, if one believes in God, as I do. But there should be also justice in this world, and I think this requires people to speak the truth courageously when they see the types of crimes that have been going on in Sudan since 2004, 2005 until today. Because the sobering truth is, as we're sitting here comfortably in the studio, as I have the honor of speaking to you and appearing before your viewers, and I just came from the Security Council, too many families in Darfur, in Sudan, having their houses burnt. They don't know where they're going to sleep tonight. And too many people are trying to bury their loved ones. And the High Commissioner for Human Rights, in his report today, mentioned that bodies are lying in the streets in some parts of Darfur for days, and the families can't even collect their bodies. This is something in which we should not tolerate. We should have some fear of God, and we should have some love of the law and love of our brothers and sisters who are suffering. And that requires us to move and act and not just speak pious words of hope and pious words of justice. We all need to join together to ensure that justice is a reality for these people that are suffering without the shelter, without the protection of the law, but actually are facing bullets and guns and oppression.
السيد مدعي عام المحكمة الجنائية الدولية، نرجو منك أن تبقى معنا. ومشاهدينا، هذا فاصل قصير، نعود بعده لمتابعة حوارنا مع المدعي العام للمحكمة الجنائية الدولية كريم خان. أهلا بكم معنا من جديد، ونرحب وإياكم بالسيد كريم خان، المدعي العام للمحكمة الجنائية الدولية. أهلا بك من جديد سيد كريم خان. وما زال لدي الحقيقة سؤالان حول السودان، ثم سننتقل بعدها لملفات أخرى. ذكرت في تقريرك أن الجرائم ما زالت ترتكب في الآونة الأخيرة في المنطقة. هل تقصد دارفور فقط أم في كل أنحاء السودان؟
Well, clearly there's, from multiple sources, there's allegations of crimes being committed throughout Sudan. But I was focusing particularly on Darfur because that was the clear parameters of the original referral. And my view, of course, judges will check it if we apply for warrants, but it's the clear view that there's a nexus between what is happening today by the Sudanese armed forces and the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces, and what compelled the Security Council to refer the matter originally to my office and to the court in 2005. And so those allegations in Darfur clearly are a priority to me, and I'm considering other allegations outside Darfur as well. But what is, in my assessment, clear is jurisdiction in relation to crimes within Darfur. And it doesn't matter if the perpetrator, the alleged suspect, is outside Darfur or even outside of Sudan. Nobody has a license to commit genocide, war crimes, or crimes against humanity. And we need to make sure that that legal principle is felt by those who have the power they feel to oppress and to kill and to destroy. Because we've got to, as a species, we have to build a world in which this is no longer acceptable.
لكن هل لديكم أي تقارير تحدد أسماء القادة الحاليين في العمليات العسكرية الجارية في السودان والتي تحدث في البلاد على نطاق أوسع؟
I think there are a lot of reports, a lot of communications have been received with a lot of allegations. I don't accept those on face value. I must verify them and authenticate them and make sure whatever finding I reach is, inshallah, reliable, and it is authentic and it is truthful. And so it's not appropriate to mention names. I'm following the evidence, but this is really last chance saloon. And I've mentioned all parties to the conflict and the commanders of those parties. I encourage them, for the sake of humanity and for the sake of justice, to contact my office as quickly as possible and start communicating. I think we're all tired of the promise of cooperation. We need to start seeing practical cooperation, and I think that's what is required right now. It is to take action. Don't wait for there to be a peace while people are being killed yesterday and today and tomorrow. It is to act in a way that we try to protect as many people as possible before even more harm is committed to the people of Sudan.
الآن وليس بعيدا عن السودان، تحدثنا إليكم منذ أشهر عن عمل المحكمة الجنائية الدولية في ليبيا. هل هناك أي تحديث ترغب بعرضه لنا؟
Well, all I'll say is I refer your viewers to my last report to the Security Council. I think I had the honor of appearing on العربية at that time. We are moving with focus. We are using the resources we have to the best of our ability, and we also have to make sure that the dear people of Libya who've suffered so much find peace, and that requires justice. That requires clear accountability for the various crimes that have been alleged, and we're working to deliver that to the best of our ability, and we need partnerships, quite frankly, and I think that's all I can say at the moment until I give my next report to the Security Council in a few months.
ننتقل لجمهورية الكونغو. لقد دعوت مؤخرا لطريقة جديدة للعمل لمعالجة جرائم الحرب في الجمهورية الديمقراطية. هل يمكنك أن توضح لنا المزيد؟ سمعناك تتحدث عن قصص مؤلمة بل ومرعبة هناك. لو تحدثنا عنها.
Well, I think your viewers remember the famous saying of Albert Einstein that insanity is defined as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So we have had trials in the DRC, the ICC, we've had convictions in the DRC, but we keep seeing allegations of rape and killings and destruction. And so I just came back from the DRC about a few weeks ago. I had a meeting with meetings with President Tshisekedi. I went to see Dr. Denis Mukwege and the Panzi Clinic, and I saw heartbreaking scenes, of young girls that were mothers who had been raped, and they were holding children who were born from those rapes. This is a part of the lived experience of our sisters, particularly in the DRC. And so the agreement I signed with President Tshisekedi is the different components of the international legal system. I have my responsibilities as prosecutor, but there's many other actors in town. The DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, is first amongst them. They have the basic first responsibility of protecting its citizens and ensuring justice. But the United Nations is there, the African Union is there, the European Union may be able to assist. And I said, let's discuss a new paradigm, a new way of working in which maybe individually we can't halt the tide of criminality that has befallen the people of the DRC, but maybe collectively a new way of working, maybe a hybrid option, maybe an option combining DRC judges and investigators with ICC technical assistance, with the African Union supporting it, with the United Nations involved. I think this new approach needs to accelerate, because there also people keep suffering, and it can be done. When I spoke to the Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Denis Mukwege, he gave me an example of a case that really is chilling. It's the Kavamu case. And there were cases of a criminal organization that were, I think, the Lord's Army or the Messiah's Army. This is what they called themselves. And they were targeting children. And there were rapes of these children, 18 months old. 18 months old to 11 years. And the reason they were raped is these criminals wanted the vaginal blood from these children to put it on themselves, because they believed, ludicrously, that it would make them bulletproof, that they would be able to fight with nobody will touch them. Now, what Denis Mukwege told me is that when these people were tried, it made a big difference, because he was doing 2 to 3 operations, repairing as best he could the wounds, the damage caused to these young girls, these children, these babies. And after the trial, it stopped. There were no more rapes from that criminal group. But we need to do much more than that one trial of 11 people. We need to do it throughout DRC, because there's many different conflicts. Sometimes it may be because of resources or tribal or ethnic or political. So I think the best way is working together in partnership, understanding that the foundation of the Rome Statute is complementarity. So the state has the first responsibility, and building partnerships with as many people as possible. And I think that is, a plan that inshallah can work better than the individual efforts of different organizations, because we've tried that, but it's not halting the kinds of crimes that we are reading about and that are being committed against too many innocent people.
في ملفنا الأخير سيد خان يتعلق بمذكرة الاعتقال التي أصدرتها المحكمة بحق الرئيس الروسي فلاديمير بوتين. يتجدد الحديث عنها لا سيما مع استعداد جنوب إفريقيا لقمة البريكس والتي قد يشارك فيها بوتين. بعض المراقبين يقولون أن المحكمة الجنائية الدولية أخطأت أصلاً في إصدار مذكرة توقيف بحق بوتين. كيف تردون؟
Well, I don't believe so. I mean, I act without any agenda. I will be a friend to anybody that wants to be a friend of justice, and I will pursue to the best of my ability with whatever little resources we have in the office any allegations of criminality. And we investigated. All parties knew that there was an ICC. All parties knew since 2004, 2005, when Ukraine accepted the jurisdiction of the court, that we had jurisdiction. And we followed the evidence, and independent judges of the ICC issued the warrants that they did. So in my view, their case is strong. I said today in the council, and I've given it internally, this instruction, that I will not even apply for a warrant unless I conclude that there's a realistic prospect of conviction. And what we need to do is to make sure that we do that across the board more widely, because every human life matters equally. And we need to really start standing up together, communities in all parts of the world, fighting for our brothers and sisters, not just our immediate neighbors in our countries, but realize that we're united by our common humanity, and we should care with people in different parts of the world, whether they're in Ukraine or Georgia or the DRC or Palestine or Israel or the Rohingya that have been targeted, it seems, in Myanmar. And so many of them are in Bangladesh, Cox's Bazar, that I just came from a few days ago. So we need to really start fulfilling our own individual and collective responsibilities, and states, which are the foundation of public international law, have the first responsibility and the first possibility to make sure these promises of justice are felt by people that need it. And I'm willing to work to the best of my ability to do better for those that need justice the most. And I think that's all I can really say.
السيد كريم خان، مدعي عام المحكمة الجنائية الدولية، شكرا جزيلا لك على المشاركة معنا في هذه الحلقة من البعد الآخر.
No, not at all. It's a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
وإلى هنا مشاهدينا الكرام تنتهي حلقة اليوم من البعد الآخر. يمكنكم دائما متابعتنا على مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي تويتر، فيسبوك ويوتيوب. كما يمكنكم الاستماع إلى حلقتنا على العربية بودكاست ومشاهدتها على منصة شاهد. إلى اللقاء.